On this week's Eastern Conference edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, we've got 4 Eastern Conference playoff series in the first round, all in full swing, and the home teams have been dominant. We'll recap what we've seen so far and what our expectations are going forward. Plus, the Buffalo Sabres have made the first head coaching hire of the offseason, just as another organization decides to go a different direction. We'll get into all that and more on this week's Eastern Conference Roundup. It's the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On NHL, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me 5 days a week over at Locked On Ottawa Senators, and here it's, as always, a Battle of Ontario edition. Joining me, the host of Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs, it's Mike DiStefano. And Mikey, are you guys parading up and down Bay Street? The only team so far in the Eastern Conference to win on the road. The Leafs and Bruins tied at 1.
Yeah, I mean, playing the parade, right? That's it. That's usually what we do. One win in the playoffs, and it's time to play in that bad boy up Yonge Street. No, I mean, I'll be honest. I think most Leaf fans feel a lot better heading into Game 3 than they did after Game 1, right? You look at the dominant performance that Austin Matthews put on. Like, he really arrived in Game 2 on was it Monday night against the Boston Bruins. So if he could kind of replicate that, bring that forward into Game 3, still, some things that the Leafs could clean up, obviously. There's still another gear that they can get from Mitch Marner, who's been rather silent, specifically offensively. I think Tavares has been all right, but even they haven't had William Nylander. Like, no one knows where Willie is. Like, where is Willie? It's where is Waldo, but where is Willie in Toronto? It's insane. And even now, like, it's 5:00, a couple hours before the game starts at the time of this recording. We still don't know if he's going to play in Game 3. It was really bizarre. He was out there doing line rushes during the morning skate, which was technically optional, but a lot of guys were out there, and he was skating with the third line, which gave us the assumption, all right, makes sense. He probably will be playing tonight. But then he stayed afterwards with the scratches and was skating alongside with them, similar to what he did ahead of Game 2, where he did not play. So it is confusing. The update from Keefe wasn't much of an update at all. Says he's a possibility to play tonight. Game time decision, I suppose. By the time most people are listening, I guess they'll probably already know this. But yeah, I would say outside of the what's going on with Willie, where's he at, kind of fiasco, Leaf fans are pretty pleased with how the Buds have played through the first couple of games, and coming back up into Toronto for 2 nights. I think Leaf fans are pretty happy with where things are at.
What did you make of Bruins head coach Jim Montgomery playing a little media game this morning, saying, hey, I thought we were the higher seed. We're spending more nights in Toronto in a hotel than we are in our homes?
So I'll say this. First and foremost, Cry Me a River. I really could care less, and I don't think it matters. Ultimately, it's 2 games. Who cares? But when I was looking at the schedule, I did find it peculiar that the extra day off was between games 3 and 4 as opposed to games 2 and 3. I like, that's just what I assumed. You get a full day of travel and then an extra day to kind of get set. Would have made more sense to me, I suppose, to keep it fair. That being said, life ain't fair. And 1 extra night inside of a hotel room really is not going to kill you. And if that's the excuse that the Boston Bruins and Jim Montgomery is going to come up with, already planting the seed that when they lose this series, they're going to come back and say, oh, we didn't get the proper scheduling. The NHL was, favoring Toronto as always, blah, blah, blah. It's going to look so dumb if this is what they're doing. I thought it was a clown comment from old Jimmy Montz.
And there's not like they're staying in bunk beds at the local hostel. I think these guys
Right.
are well taken care
Dude,
of.
I remember what I heard a story once, and I think it was maybe either the Canadians or maybe it was the Detroit Red Wings, one of the super teams back in the day, legitimately for 2 months used to stay in a hotel room. Like they went away from their family and they just stayed in the hotel room so that they were completely dialed in and locked in, and they were winning cups during that time span. So I don't think that those comments hold as much weight as Jim Montgomery thought they might.
Well, do you think that that's him just trying to outdo Sheldon Keefe, who can't seem to get the message out to the media about William Nylander? There's been taking a lot of heat at how he's been handling things.
Here's the problem. He said ahead of game one that he specifically kind of threw Tree Living under the bus, the general manager, and said, Brad said, we're not doing daily injury updates. So that's where we're at. William Nylander is day to day going forward. And he's had the same messaging every single day. Possibility to play, but we don't know for sure.
Day to day, but with the caveat that each day we won't be able to tell you how much closer he is than before. Nice.
I'll say this.
Hey, winning cures all.
Well, I saw a video come out the other day that they were playing some keep up before the game, I think, and it looked like he had a little something strapped to his back. So it could possibly be a back injury. That's what kind of is floating around now at this point. There was a report, kind of semi-report. Chris Johnston from The Athletic wrote about how, sources told him that he woke up and something was stiff on Friday, and it's still remained stiff to the point where he can't play. And then when that video surfaced with him and that he had some sort of back support playing keep up pregame, now the thought process is, okay, maybe it's a back injury for Nylander.
The other series in the Atlantic Division is that one is tied at 1 and going to Toronto for game 3 later tonight. We've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers. That series is 2-0 for Florida. And not only is it 2-0 for Florida, the Tampa Bay Lightning, despite only losing each game by 1 goal, they have not led for a single second in this series. They've been playing for behind. They ultimately got 2 quick goals in game 2 that tied it up. Stamkos on the power play was a beauty from his office, but Carter Verhaeghe, I mean, this guy is just starting to become one of those clutch playoff performers, a bit like Andre Palat. Gives me the same vibe with Tampa from a few years ago, where when the game's on the line, that's now Verhaeghe's 5th career overtime goal. So just a different guy stepping up every night. And they're going to need that even further. I don't know if you saw today, Mikey, the news, Sam Bennett out at least a week, which pretty much brings him to the end of this series. He's a huge piece and a playoff performer.
Well, does that open the door for Tampa, you think? Going back to Tampa, Amalie Arena, now they have last change. They've been really, a solid team the last few years in that building. I don't know. Like, I don't think this one's over yet. Like, I know that, the Panthers, they're up 2-0. The vibes are probably good. But this injury to Sam Bennett, coupled with the old adage that a team's never out of it until you lose on home ice, I think Tampa still has an opportunity here to pull off the upset.
Funny that the Leafs fan says you're not in trouble until you lose at home ice, when they are the only team that has taken home ice in the Eastern Conference. The other 2 series, Rangers up 2-0 on the Washington Capitals. Same can be said for Carolina over the New York Islanders. We'll discuss
Hurricanes.
Your Hurricanes
over your Islanders.
I have the worst. I have a mea culpa coming up after the break. There's your tease. This is Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. It's passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. At eBay Motors, we have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. I'm talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers.
Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Welcome back, Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan. That's Mike DiStefano. You can find him 5 days a week over at Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. I am at Locked On Ottawa Senators. We have local experts on all the biggest stories right across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm talking hockey, basketball. Mikey mentioned in the FanDuel ad that everything is going down, even the NFL draft. So all systems go in the world of sports. It is truly the greatest time of year to be a fan, whether you're cheering on the pucks or the three-pointers, whatever it is, we've got you covered. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Couple of our friends over at Locked On Islanders, Locked On Capitals, they're hanging on by that theory you laid out, Mike. You're never in trouble until you lose at home. Which one do you want to start with? I'd like you to lean towards which one of these underdogs you think has the bigger chance of coming back in their series.
Oh, interesting. I don't think either do is the thing. Like, I can see sweep city for both of these clubs, to be quite honest with you. I guess I would say the Islanders probably have the best chance to win a game and maybe make a series out of it. They've already announced that they're making the goalie change, right? Semyon Varlamov was in net for the first couple of games. Yeah, the third period collapse, I'm sure, had Patrick Waugh just pulling his hair out of his head afterwards and said to himself, not again, we're going with Elias Sorokin. So now that you make that goalie change, we've seen it so many times where that works. That has proved to be a really good formula. You think back to last year, Bobrovsky came in game 3 and he was excellent for the Florida Panthers and carried him all the way to a Stanley Cup final. Same thing with Braden Holtby the year that the Washington Capitals did. Aiden Hill, they have a different situation. Injuries had occurred last year for Vegas, but he came in midway through. There's a long history of a goalie change giving a team a spark. So I'm going to say the Islanders are probably the team that maybe can get it done just because their goalie is that good. That being said, man, did you see the underlying numbers and like the analytics and the shot share discrepancy in game number 2 between the Hurricanes and Islanders?
No, I just know that the Hurricanes will throw everything at the net. I think they had over 100 shot attempts in multiple games this year.
I'm going to look it up. Mike Kelly had a tweet that laid it out pretty perfectly as to how actually lopsided that one game in particular was. Game 3. Like, the Islanders had no business being up 3-0 in that game, to be honest with you. So I guess Carolina got the fate that they deserved. But here are some stats from game 2. Actually, I'm going to share. I'm going to try and share this here for everyone who's watching via YouTube, and then we'll talk about it for those audio listeners. So this is Mike Kelly from Sport Logic sharing some stats on Twitter. Look at that. Like, look at that. So wild stats from game 2 between the Islanders and Hurricanes. The ozone possession time, Carolina led 11 minutes and 54 seconds, just 3 minutes and 3 seconds of ozone time for the New York Islanders. Shot attempts were 110 to 28. Shots on net, 39 to 12. Cycle chances, 24 to 3. 24 to 3 cycle chances against the Islanders. Very heavy team, very old school cycle hockey, and they only had 3 of them compared to Carolina's 24. And look at the expected goal margin. 6.4 expected goals compared to just 1.7 for the New York Islanders, and that's just outrageous. That shot attempt discrepancy 110 to 28 is wild to me.
It is, but then you look at it from the standpoint that even despite these stats, which I'm sure were already lopsided well before they came back, this was an Islanders team that was up 3-1 in the game with 10 minutes left.
I know.
I just can't believe they were that close, but then the fact they can't bring it home, now it makes me question. You got them on the ropes. You couldn't bring it home. They were tied in the third period in game one as well. It's just feeling like those were their opportunities to steal one.
Yeah. And steal, like, that was Varlamov was stealing that game up until the final 10 minutes. Like, absolutely he was. And then obviously, what happened there in the third period, they tied it, scored right afterwards to take the lead, and then got an empty netter, and, some rough stuff kind of came out of it. But like, are you now a doubter? You were a believer. You thought this was going to be the upset of the first round. No longer.
That was honestly one of the worst takes I've ever had on the show. And there's a high bar. I've had bad takes before, but me saying that the Islanders were going to beat the Hurricanes, I did say in 7 games. So it's not like I was saying it'd be a sweep the other way, but my goodness, the Hurricanes are that good. And I think I underestimated how much of a difference maker Freddie Anderson was in game one, because that could have been a 3-4-1 lead for the Islanders. He was very good in that game.
He's always been good, just he's never been healthy. Like, that's been the problem. When he's on the ice, he's usually, given the team a chance to win every night. It just hasn't happened as often as you would hope, obviously. But hey, if he can stay healthy, the Hurricanes are going to be a tough out for whoever they come up against.
Meanwhile, the New York Rangers up 2-0 in their series over the Washington Capitals. I appreciated the effort of the Capitals, bringing it back to a 1-goal game. Frantic finish, but they weren't able to capitalize. Spencer Carberry mentioning he needs more from his top players, including Alexander Ovechkin. I mean, the New York Rangers are that good. That's the angle I'm taking here. I think the season is still a somewhat of a success from the standpoint of the Capitals, getting Ovi close, within reach for the goals record for next year. We know that's been a priority for them. And 2, getting into the playoffs. Yeah, you'd like to win a few games while you're here, but their goal differential tells the story of their season, in that they probably didn't deserve to be here in the first place. So take the extra gate revenue, enjoy the extra 4 or 5 games, and better luck next year.
I don't think I could say it any better than that. I don't think they are a team that had sky-high expectations. Maybe they did internally, but everyone else kind of knew that this was going to be a quick work by the New York Rangers in this series. And they've been the better team by far. Like, Lindgren's had to make some big stops, or else this probably could be each game could have been a blowout realistically. I think the Rangers are probably still going to end up sweeping this thing. And hey, my Rangers, buddy. My Rangers.
Say something nice about the Capitals, though. Spencer Carberry seems like a very good coach. I know he was assistant in Toronto recently, but his press conferences are very well thought out. I also have gained that appreciation for Jared Bednar, too, listening to him a bunch, being based here in Winnipeg, listening to him before and after games. Just seems like steady steers the ship with those guys.
I'll tell you what, they are. Those guys are excellent, and you could listen to them, talk hockey for a while, but nobody beats, to me at least, no one beats Paul Maurice.
Yeah,
Paul Maurice post-game pressers are just, they're storybooks. Like, I could sit there and listen to him
pull up a chair,
going to bed, pull up a chair, listen in. Here's how it went. I love listening to Paul Maurice talk, man. Like, whenever he's doing interviews, like, not even just, post game, whatever, just doing interviews in general, talking about the game. I love it. You can tell he's got passion for it, and he's just, I don't know, very compelling with his voice. Paul Maurice is a great listen. If anyone wants to give that a go sometime.
Let us know in the comments, who's your favorite coach to listen in pregame, postgame, whenever. I know Torts would be a popular answer because you never know what he's going to say next. Or is it someone who's maybe a little more insightful and opens up the book on how they view the game. So those are the 4 series in the Eastern Conference. On the other side, we've got news off the ice, just talking about NHL head coaches. Lindy Ruff has been rehired by the Buffalo Sabres. It's been a while. It's been a lot of coaches, but he was the last one to lead them to a playoff series way back when.
Ruff back in Buff. Let's go.
Oh my God, there's the tease. More on the other side. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Are you hiring? You need Indeed. Because when you're drafting your fantasy team, you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building a talent roster, you need Indeed. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. Just go to Indeed and do it all there. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. All you need to do is join the 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Today's show is also brought to you by Sleeper. Regardless of where your team is in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy hockey contests. All you got to do is pick whether studs like McKinnon or McDavid or Makar, possibly Carter Verhaeghe, Mr. Clutch himself, will record more or less than their sleeper projections, things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper terms of use for details and locational availability.
Welcome back to Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan. That's Mike DiStefano. You can find us 5 days a week. I'm at Locked On Sens. He's at Locked On Maple Leafs. We have local experts on the biggest stories, including the NFL, where the Locked On NFL mock draft is now available. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local experts at Locked On are picking for every franchise. Man, I love draft season. The NHL one can't come soon enough. End of June in Las Vegas. I will be boots on the ground. And I'm hoping, as an Ottawa Senators fan, that my team has a coach by then. But right now, the carousel continues to spin. We've got David Quinn fired in San Jose. And at the same time, the Buffalo Sabres hire Lindy Ruff back into the mix, a former player for the Buffalo Sabres for years, the entire decade almost of the 1980s. And then he was back as head coach of the Sabres from 1997 through 2013. Now the Sabres playoff drought has extended past then. Not Lindy Ruff. He made the playoffs twice with Dallas, and then with the New York Rangers, he went as an assistant, went to some playoff runs there, and then has been the head coach for the New Jersey Devils for the last 4 seasons, losing in round 2 last year and missing the playoffs the other 3. Your thoughts when you heard the hiring?
I mean, I don't know how I think that Lindy Ruff clearly means a lot to that franchise. Like, you think back to when this team had its most success, it was when Lindy Ruff was with this organization. Like, he was the head coach for how many years here? From age 37 to 52, from 97 to 2013. Like, that's insane how long he spent as the head coach there. And they most years were in the playoffs and they were leading divisions and they went to a cup final in that stretch. Like, he is, I would say, without really knowing the history, I suppose, of their coaching, but just knowing that team, I'd assume he's the most winningest coach of all time in Sabres history. So there is definitely, a reason to believe that this will work out. I thought it was interesting when Don Granato got let go that some of the players came out and said, "Yeah, we need players that, or we need a coach that needs to hold us more accountable," basically. And Lindy Ruff, back in his heyday, was known as a coach who would do that. But did you see that enough in Jersey? Like, why didn't that work out for New Jersey? And what makes you think that, he's going to be able to make it work in Buffalo?
I don't think that way. I
Yeah.
think that Lindy Ruff, I mean, maybe, but it just to me screams like, look, you have to sell winning as an organization. And if you can't sell winning, you sell hope, you sell prospects. And if you can't sell prospects, you know what you sell? And not saying that the Buffalo Sabres don't have prospects, but if you
Yeah.
can't sell like that, you sell nostalgia. And
Yeah.
nobody loves nostalgia. I think as a person who's followed them, that's exactly what they did earlier this year. They went and
Yeah.
got Jacques Martin. It's almost an identical situation, although it was an interim situation in Ottawa. But bringing back the retreads, there's the cycle that we always see with coaches, and then there's going back to what your organization had the most success with, albeit years ago. I'm not saying it's not going to work. I think Buffalo underperformed this year
For sure.
big time, but they also got great seasons out of guys who took further steps. JJ Peterka, Zach Benson, most notably, 18 years old, stepped into the league and played almost all 82 games. Like,
Yeah.
their future is still very bright as long as they're able to negotiate having their three best defensemen all left shots. That to me it's a tough thing to get over when you have to figure out that, especially 2 first overall picks that are going to want their minutes in Power and Dahlin. So, I mean, I think they're another year away, but I don't know. I'm not saying that Lindy Ruff can't get it done. I'm just a little surprised that's the direction they went.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. Like, we'd spoke on this before, and I think some other names were being brought up, and I think Craig Berube was a name that was kind of commonly associated as, okay, well, maybe Berube fits the bill for the type of coach that they need. He was out there, so I think there was a lot of people expecting maybe he could be in the mix. So it was a little thrown off when I heard Lindy Ruff, let's say, that there was going to be a reunion there. But to your point, I'm not saying it's not going to work. I think that they are a talented team. I think that they've done a pretty good job building up that group. They just need, a couple more players to take those next steps and find a level of consistency. Hopefully those goaltenders can kind of get going. And Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was really rounding into form in the back half of the season. So hopefully they have their goalie tandem with him and Levi going forward. And then they should just, get Tage to score a little bit more this year. He dropped off. Alex Tuck didn't do a whole lot this season. Dylan Cousins had a pretty down year compared to his last couple of seasons too. So they just need some more people to step up, I think, and play up to their potential. I think they'll be an okay group, and I think Lindy will be okay there.
It's been 11 seasons since Lindy Ruff coached in Buffalo, and he will be the 7th person since he was last there. So 7 coaches in 11 years in Buffalo. They're hoping that he's back for maybe not 15 years like he was before, but the better part of a decade. They're hoping they found their long-term guy.
Well, let me throw this one at you. Do you think so David Quinn was fired today by the San Jose Sharks. If they hadn't have hired Lindy Ruff, do you think he would have been a decent candidate for the Buffalo Sabres?
I don't know. I'm so confused by David Quinn because it felt like he underperformed with the New York Rangers. And then it's hard to judge him in San Jose. That was one of the worst rosters ever constructed.
Terrible. The fact that he got fired was bizarre. Caught me off guard.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? You're
Yeah.
going to throw someone in there to also finish 32nd place next year? Like, I don't know.
So it's a bit tough. I have trouble when the GM is clearly trying to tank.
Yeah.
And I don't know. But let's put it this way. If the Senators were to hire David Quinn, I'd be very skeptical.
Skeptical in a good way or in a
No.
bad way?
No, in a bad way.
Oh.
Because I
really?
need, like, the Senators have been known under their previous ownership to always kind of go bargain bin hunting for coaches, no
Yeah.
experience, that sort of thing. I know he has a bit of experience, but I think Senators fans at least would love to see someone with a Stanley Cup on their resume, a coach that has coached maybe over 700 games, something like that, like a real vet, because they've been too often they're giving coaches their first or second crack.
Is there any updates there? Like, they interviewing anyone? Like, Berube makes too much sense.
I know.
It made a lot of sense mid-season. It didn't happen. No one's got him yet. So
That's
that one
almost
made
where it's like, if it were to have happened, wouldn't it already?
unless he just wanted to take the rest of the year off.
Yeah, I'm
He said,
curious.
I'll canvass my options in the off season and give myself a full off season to cultivate a plan of attack going into the following season, perhaps.
I love that I don't know, because under Pierre Dorion, we'd know every candidate. We'd know what interviews were happening. We'd know everything. I kind of like this new cone of silence. Nobody knows what Steve Staios is doing. He just said the process is underway, but they also want to make sure they have every available candidate. So I would be surprised if there's a decision made. I think that the sweet spot is going to be in the 2 or 3 weeks before the draft. Enough time that they can be at the draft, meet the prospects, kind of be overlooking dev camp that starts right after, involved in depth decisions in the UFA period, but not early enough that you lose out on a candidate. Like, think about Barry Trotz won the cup and then went to free agency.
That's true. If you had to really quickly, I guess, power rank, because I know you've thought about this. This is all you don't have playoffs to talk about, so you do have a head coaching search to talk about on Locked On Sens.
Excuse you, it's B-Sens Marlies tonight. Are you new?
Oh, okay. Sorry. My apologies to the Belleville Senators. But really quickly, like, do you have maybe a 3-pack of guys who you think might be good candidates for the Ottawa Senators? Are they the last East team that needs a coach?
No, sorry, you said in the East.
Yeah, the
NHL
East.
head coaches, because there were a few interim head coaches.
Yeah, I don't know
this
if they've
season.
Like, I assume Travis Green's going to return to Jersey. Just an assumption, I suppose.
That would be the only other one in the East then, because St. Louis has Drew Bannister on an interim. LA, Jim Hillier, and that's it.
Columbus. Did Columbus end up making
Columbus?
Yeah, I can't remember if they ended up making a change or not now.
I'm not seeing them. Oh, yeah, Pascal Vincent still there.
Yeah. Okay. So really, like, the big one, I guess, that's still vacant technically is the Senators. So do you have like a 3-pack maybe who you think would be good fits?
I'd be happy with Berube. I really would be. He would be top of my list. I was intrigued by this David Carl guy with Denver. Just won another national championship. He's 34 years old, but it's just like a wizard and has like 12 years of coaching experience already. So that's wild. But in a recent interview with Spit and Chicklets, he said, look, his family's really young. He would have to be, what he said, overpaid to move his family and do that right now. So
in the Melnick years, that probably would not have been even possible. But hey, with new ownership, possibly.
No, I mean, I think that it's probably a bit of a far-fetched idea at this point, because it might have happened already. But Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh was a name I was tracking through the spring as a guy, but I think they hold on to him.
I think so too.
So that to me would be another like great candidate, but obviously one that's unavailable right now. It's hard, man. It's tough to narrow it down for me.
Option, Jar Gallant. Like,
his name was thrown out there the last time the Senators did a head coaching search, but didn't end up working out. I'm still so mad they missed on Patrick Waugh. I really am.
Yeah,
that's the type of coach that they need. So
yeah, but
we'll see.
The Islanders get to the playoffs.
Jonathan Gruden was a name that was thrown out. He's currently the Marlies coach. He was an assistant on Barry Trotz's staff with the Islanders when they made their back-to-back conference final appearances. He's got history with Steve Stais and Michael Andlauer. He won the OHL championship with them, with the Hamilton Bulldogs in 2019.
Oh, that's totally gonna happen then.
So, but
it looks like Andlauer and Stais are basically just gonna
hire their boys.
They're just gonna, similarly to what the Leafs did with Kyle Dubas hiring all of his boys from the Sioux and
hey,
signing
at least these
all the
guys won
from the
together.
Sioux.
At least these guys won together. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
but
Hey,
no, I think in a perfect world,
Robbie Thomas to the Sens.
no, it'd be you know who their stud was. They picked up at the deadline, Mason McTavish.
Ooh, yeah.
You know who Mason McTavish's dad works for? He's a pro scout for the Ottawa Senators. Wonder if he could, you know, target a centerman from Anaheim, maybe.
Possibly.
Wishful thinking, dude. Mason McTavish is going to be a star.
Yeah, I think they could target a young Anaheim center. My guess is the other one.
No,
the other one. As opposed
no, I don't want Mitch Marner Jr. anywhere near this team.
Dude, the downfall of Trevor Zegras that's a summer show. That's a summer show for us to get into one day.
It is. But if he went to the right situation, he could be a stud. Maybe.
Yeah.
I just think back World Juniors, he was so good.
So good. And
COVID year, he won MVP.
I know. He was terrific, man. And it was lighting it up in his rookie season also and scoring all these great goals. He's at the All-Star game. And I know he wasn't healthy this year, so it's a little unfair, but
you see the headline?
4 goals.
Pat Verbeek wants to add a top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman. Like, don't we all?
Yeah, I think every team would like to add everything they could possibly.
You know what's funny though? I bet you if you had asked him last summer,
6 goals this year. That's it.
If you had asked Pat Verbeek last summer after he signed Alex Killorn and Radko Gudas, he probably would have told you he got a top 4 defenseman and a top 6 forward. Turns out they needed a bit more.
Little bit more. Probably.
Mikey, any final thoughts on today's show? I know you wanted to mention about the Hockey Card Expo going on in Toronto.
Oh, yeah. So we got the Hockey Card Expo going on in Toronto this weekend for any hockey card enthusiasts, fellow hockey card enthusiasts out there. It's going on from Thursday through Sunday. It's a lot of fun. It's awesome. You can buy tickets either ahead of time. I think they're a little cheaper if you do that at the sportcardexpo.com, but also you can buy them once you get there. Good time, lots of fun. I'll be there. So if you see me, say hello. And I just want to show you this card that I picked up the other day because I thought it was hilarious. Goldie Goldthorpe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Are you familiar with Goldie Goldthorpe?
Yeah, that's from Slapshot.
He is the guy who they basically mimicked from Slapshot. And I found that in just like a rummage bin. I got it for like a couple of bucks. And I saw him just like, this is hilarious. An autograph from Goldie Goldthorpe. So stuff like that you can always find at those shows, those kind of unique, interesting pieces. So yeah, I'll be there. If anyone kind of sees me walking up and down the showroom, make sure you say hello.
That's awesome, man. Enjoy that. Enjoy the Leafs game tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another week of Locked On NHL. That's Mike DiStefano. Go check him out at Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Senators. And make sure you check out all the local experts on the biggest stories. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.